Wow, so many people here. Happy to be here. All right, so we got about 244 slides to go through in the next 45 minutes, so buckle up. This is going to be a fun adventure. So, hi, I'm Stöck, and this is Johoi, and we are here because we are on tour for our new album,
Pure Scandinavian Darkness.
That's pretty sweet. No, I'm kidding. We're here to talk to you about space weather, heat, voltage, and some of that other stuff that makes your devices go haywire and spit out things like these and leak some other stuff and send emails to places where they really weren't supposed to be sent. Like this nice Slack invite, for instance. And if you look at the email address here, you can see that it's VismQ. That's pretty close to Visma, right?
But but not exactly. It's a Q instead of A, right?
So you mean it's actually a typo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a typical definition of a typo squatting domain. Because the Q here is very close to the A. And people register those, so people mess things up. That's typo squatting. That is not what we're going to talk about today. Because we're going to talk about bitflips. And bitflips is like typo squatting, but for computers. And the coolest thing is, all it takes is one single bit to change everything. Because if you take this domain here, for instance, Google, if you change this bit here from 1 to 0, that can turn into Google. Or these two, then it's Google, Woogle. And since we're down on the W here, let's talk about WordPress. If we flip this one bit here into 0, it turns into GordPress.
Sweet.
You can actually, you can register that one if you want to. I know Ming's going to do that, so you might have a chance to be real fast. And this is what is defined as bit squatting. And bit squatting was coined by Artem Dinnerberg that did a great research on this back at DEF CON 19, and he released a real cool paper that was primarily focused on bitflips happening on the DNS level. And if you do a Wikipedia thing on what bit squatting is, it's more or less like you buy a domain, you sit on idle, and hopefully you hope for something to break, like space weather, jamma, and then voila, you get shit hit in your box, which is great. And so Dylan, he nerd-sniped me with this and said like, dude, you know what I did? I registered googleapis.com, which is one flip away from googleapis.com. And due to what I think is cosmic rays, I started to get shitload amount of loot. That was interesting. And the loot was API tokens, JavaScript access, and shitload of other stuff. So I'm like, ooh, I want to have some of that. And I asked him, how do I do this? And it's like, it's very simple.
Yeah.
Right? All you need to do is to buy a couple of flip domains, catch all the requests, and write into a log file and have fun.
Yeah, easy steps, right?
Easy steps. And since all of you are super smart people, I'm not as smart as you, I figured that we're going to break down how this whole DNS HTTP request thing works that these guys did research on a lot of years, so nobody gets left behind. So what is going to work? Imagine this for a second. Let's say that we want to do this OAuth dance flow, and you want to send a GET request to this OAuth configuration thing. What your client is going to do, your app, is going to connect to your DNS server, that's going to connect to this root DNS server, and it's going to ask who's the authority for this, and that's going to give you a name server that you connect to. That's going to give you the IP address of the domain that you're going to connect to. Your client is that's going to say, ooh, nice, sweet, I'm going to send the request to this web server. Web server is going to respond back with, you need to go to this token endpoint, and this dance continues. But imagine for a second that if a bitflip would happen at this stage, so WordPress turns into GordPress, what's going to happen is that your client is going to talk to the DNS, that's going to talk to another name server, the one that you hopefully own, and give you an IP address of a certain place. Your client's going to not care at all because it flipped. So he's just going to send that straight out, and hopefully you were able to collect that loot into your server, right?
Right.
And that's how it used to work. But then somebody decided that SSL was a cool thing, and HTTPS and all that. So
It is.
if you did, and you didn't have the right certificate, you will get this. You will get real sad.
Like we should do.
Yes. So in reality, what I needed to do was to buy the right flip domains, then set up a by9 catch-all server, set up a Nginx proxy in front of it, add some dynamic flash code, and store that in multiple log files, eventually, getting some Let's Encrypt certificate for domain that I kind of was guessing that would eventually flip, and then do the whole process over every 90 days. Because I was a cheap person and didn't want to buy the certificates. And if you look at the SAN certificate here, for instance, as a subject alternative name, a certificate contains the name that you decide is going to be in there. So you kind of need to pre-stage those if you want to use the SAN certificate. The choice for that would be to have a wildcard domain. And wildcards are pretty cool because they kind of, this certificate here would cover everything on the first level, like www, blog, and dev API. But if you're instead, let's say that we were sending this request at auth.devapi.wordpress.com, and you had this certificate installed, you're going to end up here again. That means that when the connection comes in, the client's going to terminate it, and there's no fun. So you would need to get another wildcard certificate that would cover everything ahead of this dev API kind of thing. And then it continues all the way down, because we all know that APIs now have all this east, west coast, blah, 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 blah. It's a lot of guessing and brute forcing and pre-staging involved. Tedious and boring. But I decided that's something we're going to do, and manually I put all these TXT records in there because that's the dance that you need to do together with Let's Encrypt. Had it up to the Nginx proxy kind of stuff. Go ahead and manually to the routes app, and that every 90 days. So I figured that maybe I should automate this. And everybody here knows that it's easy to automate, but I didn't have time for that. So I did the normal thing that people do when things get boring. I did something else for about 2 years. I forgot about the whole thing until I got this nice email from my VPS provider that says, your Flappy McFlippy Place device is running out of disk space. And I'm like, what? What's that? Oh yeah, it's that box I spun up. Fun. Now I remember. So I logged into it, and lo and behold, it was empty on disk space. I'm like, where did that go? So I started to look into the catch file that I had, and that was full of loot. And it was not a little piece of loot, and there was a lot of them. And at the same time in Finland.
So yeah, I'm really into...
wrong way.
Wrong button, apparently. I'm really into wrong buttons as well. But I'm really into self-hosting. I've been doing that for the better part of the last 25 years or so, mostly out of pure curiosity, but also for privacy concerns. So I want to remind you here that all the domains that you see here, they are here just for fictional. They're just fictional. They're just here for entertainment purposes, and so we can use these cool graphics of C cassettes and stuff like that. So,
because .lo-fi looks cool.
Yes. So, in this story, I registered a short domain for myself because short domains are cool, right? L0.fi. So, what I typically do initially if I'm setting up anything email related, I'm basically setting up a catch-all email address. So that allows me to register into different services, give out my email in a unique way. So if somebody sells my data or somebody gets breached, I'm just able to block that off from MTA side and be done with that.
So you kind of more or less instead of using the same password, you're not using the same email everywhere.
That's the ghetto multi-factor authentication.
You like spam.
So suddenly, I'm starting to receive these emails that are certainly not intended for me, but for a bank instead. So it turns out I have this domain L0.fi, but there's a bank with the domain LO.fi. And these are clearly typos from the customers. It's not the bank sending me emails, but their customers sending their data to me. So now I'm basically the support for the bank and all of its employees employees for all of their customers that are misplacing their hands on the keyboard. Not good. So I do whatever a responsible person would do. I'm trying to contact the bank security through email. Unfortunately, after a couple of days of waiting of a reply of some sort, I'm not getting anything. So the next step is obviously trying harder. So I pick up my phone, call their customer service. Could you please connect me with somebody? This is kind of important. I don't really want to be in charge of people's PII, basically, and their bank stuff. So we need to figure out something here. But I do get why they didn't really find anyone, because there's no real good technical solution for that out there. But so I'm not able to get a hold of anyone here. But meanwhile, the story goes on. So you probably know or have seen this guy.
A bad boy.
A bad boy. Chunky boy. A scanner. So what a scanner does, it scans stuff. Stuff like contracts, for example. But if you connect that stuff to the scanner, the bad boy, if you connect that to a network, many of them have features that also allows them to send stuff. And if you're going to do that, you pretty much want to be sure that you configure it correctly. Well, one of the offices had a scanner that was misconfigured, 0 and O, pretty close to each other, so I do get it. So now I'm receiving like a contract to my email. And it's like, oh, crap. Like, I really don't want to be here in this position. So still no response, things go on, months go past, and there's a summer. So what do you do during a summer?
You go on vacation.
You go to a hacker camp.
Oh, okay.
So there was this great hacker camp Saas 2017 in Central Europe, which I was attending. And in our beautiful Finnish village, with the sauna, by the way, we also had some wonderful people from NCSC FI. They are doing an awesome job. They are really close to the community. They're basically part of the community in Finland, and they're doing an amazing job in Finland. So I'm kind of describing my issue to one of their guys, and they understand the severity like immediately. Oh shit! I'll get you to the contact with somebody right now. And I'm like, okay, I don't have my keys. I cannot access my infrastructure. I cannot provide the data right now. So let's wait for after we get back home, and let's handle it then. So they delivered. Right after we got back home, we figured out they figured out somebody for me to talk to. A lawyer. This is not the most comfortable place for a security researcher or a /hacker to be in. But that said, the discussion was really good. The lawyer was awesome. There's obviously, as I said, there's no real technical solutions for that. So I just handed the domain over. I didn't have anything important in that anyway. So the story ends here, right? Not quite. So a couple of years in the future, I register a new domain, ki.fi. I set up my email stuff there. And this guy pops in again. Same fucking bank. How? Well,
it doesn't even look the same.
Yeah. Well, a quick glimpse to the keyboard. It's a one-off error, misplacement of a hand. So yeah, at this point, we have already a connection with bank security people. So hey, it's me again. And they understand the issue and like, okay, thanks, we'll take this to the risk department and we'll discuss and figure out how to fix this. So I'm actually also a customer of this bank, so I noticed quickly that emails stopped coming. There were obviously not that many this time around, but there were still some. Emails stopped coming, and they did the most smart thing there. They said no to the emails for the initial customer communication in the first place. So they moved their communication within the application. And that's a smart thing, because everything is under their control. And this is the actual end of the story.
But it's also the beginning of another one. Because, you know, we're meeting up in this bay in January this year, and we're friends, we're hanging out, you know, talking about war stories and loot and other stuff that we collected. And I told Jonah about all the freaky kind of stuff that I found, and explained to him, like, oh man, this setup needs to be better, we should be able to do it in a cool way. So I explained to him what he could do, and maybe we could put our two projects together in a cool way. And the decision were more or less that.
Yeah, like maybe it's actually quite a few things that we should do here. So what about if we scratch everything and write everything from the start? How hard can it be?
Well, we need to figure out how to do it, but
Yeah,
I say we should do it, and we started to get a plan, because we needed to have like a custom DNS server, custom HTTP server, custom mail server, certificate management, payload injections, extended config files so we can configure it any way we want, JSON format log files, and then an easy 5-minute setup for anyone to abuse.
So can we do it? We certainly can.
We certainly can. So that was the birth of Certainly. And Certainly is a tool that TLDR, what it does collect tasty creds, but it listens to everything and says yes to everything. It's like your friendly butler that delivers on-the-fly certificate for any kind of request that you want to have, and then whatever kind of thing you requested is going to say, that's an excellent choice, and deliver you somewhere else, which is great. So I'm going to break down the cool thing that made this really work and why it was pretty funny. Anyway, so look at this. Remember this one here. We had the second part of this OAuth dance kind of thing, and we had a token, a post request. It flips in memory. In this case, it's going to talk to the root server, but instead, it's going to end up here talking to our DNS server that's running here and is all happy on Certainly. Certainly is a multi-domain catch-all DNS server, so it's going to log the requests coming in, which is great. We're going to know what kind of stuff they come in. And then it's going to respond back with the IP address for either our box or whatever you want to put them in. Prior research pointed out that a very effective way to get things to get faster was to have was to answer back with 2 responses. So you will not only send WordPress.com, you will actually send back in a record for WordPress, but with the IP address to the box, right? Which is great. But it's also, we realized that generates a lot of traffic and things can break really, really fast. And
we don't really want to set the world on fire like we're the good guys here, right?
Yes, we're the good guys. We're the baddies.
Are we?
But we're not. So, but this is open source, so yeah, this is a flag. You can change that if you want to. Anyway, the response goes back to the client, and the client then connects to Certainly.
So this is basically where the HTTPS flow takes over. So how it goes is that client basically sends the client hello as a part of a TLS handshake. And Certainly will say to the client that, hold up. Meanwhile, the TLS session is paused. Certainly is going in the background, starting the whole TLS certificate issuance flow with the CA. So it's asking for a certificate. CA is going to ask Certainly to provide the proof of ownership of the domain, which Certainly is certainly happy to provide because it controls the DNS. So that gets done. CA is super happy because it's all good. Verified ownership, we can now sign your certificate, and they do. Certainly accepts the certificate and delivers that to the waiting client application, releasing the whole waiting TLS handshake process. So now the client is super happy with the certificate that is valid, obviously, and it's able to send the data that it was supposed to. 4 seconds ago, on average, it takes 4 seconds to do the whole dance in the background, so things rarely time out. So what Certainly does when it gets the data, it logs it. But because we want to we don't want to break things here, what we're doing is actually responding with the 307 temporary redirects to the original domain, that the non-bitflip domain, basically, or non-typo squad domain. So after that, the client happily connects to the original server, and the search bot backs out.
We didn't do anything. We're all good. Nothing to see here. But we collected the loot, which is totally sweet. And what's made this unique is that when it comes to bitflips, either you needed to kind of guess this whole long name to get this to work, and bitflips usually only happens like once or twice, not repeatedly, unless you poison, or you do the 307 redirect. Because we realized you can get things stuck in loops where they just go back and back again. So if you're super nice to people, they tend to come back. So yeah, this is a sweet deal. So I figured that you guys are sitting here and thinking like, oh, I want to do this. What kind of domain should I get? Well, Luke Young did some great research on this. He did one that says, investigate the practical cost of abusing memory errors with DNS at DEF CON 23. You can see his research over at bitfliped1.com. And he also released a tool called BF Lookup. And the cool thing with this, even though it's aged a bit, it's an easy way to just run that on your own domain, and it's going to do a quick checkup which domains are available.
The stars here, they are the good stuff.
Stars are good. And if you notice that somebody else has a lot of domains registered on your flips, congrats on you. If not, dig into it. In this case, we realized that if we're doing this on WordPress, that means that we have 28 choices to register.
That's quite a few.
Quite a few, but it's a good thing. The longer the world, the more potential bitflips, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
So, and that's not really a steep cost when you do the first year kind of registration. But if you wanted to renew that for 3 years, that's going to be a little bit more expensive. So we needed to funnel this down. This needs to be a way for us to realize what is the best ROI. And so we digged into a lot of research and figured out this, and found this cool study where they talks about the highest potential of bit flipping from a 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. So obviously that's something we want to dig into. And the probability says that 1 to 0 is more likely. And that has to do with something that I have no idea, but it probably goes more power to have a 1 active than a 0.
It's like electricity and magic, right?
Don't hate the player, hate the game. Anyway, so the characters with the most zeros in them, and this is interesting, are O and W. So we want a lot of ones in here because they can turn into something else. Because O and W have something that is defined as character siblings. They can turn into something else. O can turn into KGMNL and W VSCGCP. That's cool because we want to stay within the DNS standard and not have weird characters in there. That's going to break the whole stuff. So they're not the only one. There's a shitload of different ways to do this, but these are the more common ones.
Yeah. Hey, you guys there in the back, are you able to see the last line? Because if not, I have news for you.
Then you need lasering. Anyway, and in another part of the spectrum, the characters that had the most zeros are A and B. So I hear where you're going here like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter, you know, A and B, all these ones and zeros. What happens if we flip all these ones here into 0? Well, this is, okay. In my world, this is the 3rd bit, but if you're writing C, it's like the 7th or half. I'm not a programmer, I don't give a damn. 3rd, left from right. That one, flip that to 0, it always changes the casing of if it's a lower case or a higher case.
Yeah, DNS doesn't care, right?
And if you look at your logs whenever, you're going to see that there's a lot of different these leet speak kind of domains coming in. And that is, DNS doesn't care. It's just going to deliver whatever. But if you take this one here and move all these ones into 0, what's going to happen is that you can see here, O turns into M, W turns into U, A turns into nothing because it already had a 0, right? And B turns into a backtick. And we kind of like backticks, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Not in this context, but yeah.
Won't work in DNS, but it makes you wonder. So which one of these most ones, with the most ones, are the most probably, or have a chance to cause a flip? Well, we ran the data for a long time, and we realized that the most bang for the buck are these, which means O turns into K exponentially more times than G, M, N, and L in this order. So if you want to focus on doing one thing, go for O and take these. Because we want to have the most maximum ROI for this. And if we look at WordPress, somebody has already registered the K1.
Was it you?
No. But it's kind of funny. That shows that somebody else is thinking about this. Good stuff. So the choices would be these ones for us to prioritize if we wanted to buy something. And in here is the beautiful WordPress. And because all it takes for WordPress to turn into WordPress is one single bit, voila, that's fun.
Nice.
But how about, if we expand it a bit, how about top-level domains? What do we have there? Miko dropped that. So if you go into ICANN and you go through the whole list there, there's a lot of them. And this list gets updated from time to time. It's a good thing to use curl on it. And then you can see that these lists are in here. How many is in the list? Well, it's 1,447. The first line is the commenting out. So we got 1,446 TLDs now.
That's quite a few.
So can't write code, so went on ChatGPT, said, take all these, please match them, and give me the bitflips, which are the potential ones. Sweet. Or I was more lazy, that was honest. And it turns out there's quite a few of them. Actually, it's 348 ones that actually flip to another domain, which is pretty sweet. So IO can easily turn into IM. And IM is the Isle of Man. And you can register a domain here for about 20 bucks. So
yeah. And the flip from O to M was actually a pretty probable one.
It's a high probability flip. And if you're here, and maybe you like MetaMask or some of these other crypto mojangas and .io, somebody else thought that was a cool idea too, and had already registered this one. They are not running MetaMask on that one. But somebody's looking for flips. I like that. Another cool thing would be to, I mean, a lot of companies use .com. Why not see if .bomb would be an option? Because that's a perfect flip too. And bomb apparently means good in Portuguese. And this whole intention of this domain is to have an extension for all the good things and all the good businesses and whatever. So why not pre-register for Amazon.bomb? Who knows what kind of subdomain stuff you can get there?
Yeah.
Well, I'm in that line, so you'll get first. Or you can even, if you really want to go the extent, you can do the vanity route and buy KCM. That's a perfect flip. That's a good one. But it has a steep application cost of $185,000 and a window of about every 7 years.
And you have to figure out a pretty good excuse to actually get the application through, but yeah.
Yes.
For some people that may be interested, 185K may not be that.
And it's not even guarantees. Like, that's the application fee. Sweet. So knowing all this data that we have now, we kind of wanted to replicate the results to get them right. Because my shady kind of half-ass setup that I was running for two years worth of monitoring, we couldn't really trust that. So we want to do it the right way for science. And obviously also because we like tasty creds. So also, part of this whole thing was for us to finally prove that this had to do with cosmic space stuff, space radiation, because every research paper you read leading up now is talking about that it's cosmic space stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, cosmic rays causing DRAM errors, right?
Right. So we decided to do some bit squatting, bought 25 domains. That was flips for some Saas and cloud providers and package repos and other providers on things that we use every day. But they are high user numbers.
Yeah.
Because the more amount of traffic, obviously, the faster our results going to be. And we ran that for 4 months and 23 days, hoping to get some kind of weather space thing. And man, we got lucky. Because in May, the Earth was hit by the strongest solar storm in over 20 years. That was just hammering around geomagnetic things and breaking stuff on the planet Earth. And we're like, this.
You know, we were at the perfect vantage point. We had our infrastructure running, everything like figured out. The only thing that we had to do was wait. And wait we did.
We waited. It's like, this is going to be so much loot. And we decided not to look at logs for a week. For at least we knew that we needed to have like even numbers, or at least have some down to it. And then we started looking into it, and there was nothing. There were no anomalies at all. We couldn't match anything on this. This is the perfect storm.
Yeah.
So we had a big chance of this going haywire. And then we started to go back and look through all the data we had. Does it correlate with any of these storms that happened in this period?
Well,
And none.
so, just 2 weeks ago, a new research paper was released. It inspects the correlation between DRAM errors and cosmic rays. And they actually have a huge data set there. And the research was done by researchers from Barcelona Supercomputing Center, European Space Agency, and University of Athens. And they found no correlation, just like we did in our data. In fact, they're advising people to revisit their previous research to kind of readjust or like look at the hypothesis that they had.
Yeah, so it's revisiting prior work. Because people have been throwing this around the whole time and say like, yeah, but it has to do with cosmic rays and DNS. And that is not the facts, sadly. Because the facts are, during this period that we did collect data, we get about 62 million DNS requests coming in. That's nice. That turned into 2.8 million HTTPS requests on the signed certificate that we generated. Nice. And we collected about 15,000 emails for that period.
That's a lot of Viagra.
And a lot of people say that I'm a hacker and you're watching porn, give me money. But you do remember that, this bad boy, right? Yeah. Thing is that we apparently got some scans here as well. Because somebody's using this e-tag kind of thing and scanning the thing and it sends out and voila.
Yeah, GDPR stuff maybe there.
Maybe we don't know, we deleted it.
Yeah.
So, but we also got about 2,300 valid authentication tokens, JWT tokens, and a lot of stuff for a lot of multiple Fortune 500 companies. And with the recent Snowflake data breach in mind, that kind of makes you wonder, did we actually build a info-stealer malware tool?
Are we the baddies?
Because this is happening way more than we thought that it did. And the data shows it. So I can hear you sitting here and like, oh shit, what am I supposed to do now?
So the first thing, obviously, in all of cases like this, is to take responsibility. So stop blaming stuff and get to work. So obviously the easiest thing would be to start registering these bitflip domains for your domain. If you're cheap, you can go with the probability stuff. And if you're amazing, you can go the Amazon route.
Get all of them.
Get all of it.
I want to see that renewal cost, though.
Yeah. And it's going to be a problem with some of the TLDs as well, obviously. But then when we go to the application space, we saw a overrepresentation of mobile devices in our data set. But it was obviously not limited to the mobile devices, but because of lack of ECC DRAM in those, that is probably why we saw a lot of them.
And it weren't the whole thing that, yeah, iPhone's safe, kind of Android shit thing. None of that. We didn't see any mishap in the data that some kind of device had more probabilities. There's probably there, but we didn't dig fully into it. We were just happy to see that it was like even-ish numbers-ish, depending on how many users of that device.
Also, at the same time, there are like really good reasons why the certificate pinning got basically scrapped from the browsers. So let's not go back there, but this is something that you can do in the mobile space here. However, you really need to be sure to implement that correctly because people are constantly fucking that up.
Because if you don't default fail, right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen is that the client's going to say, yeah, it's not in the domain I'm supposed to and normally do. The bitflip domain is something else. It's going to send the loot there. Yeah,
basically fail closed when you know that you're talking to your own like infrastructure, basically. Another thing that we could do, and this is definitely not to work for a single person, would be the embrace the philosophy of the OpenBSD pledge.
Yes, please.
So what we could do here would be, upon application initialization, we could tell the networking libraries that these are the only hosts that we are going to talk with. And in the TLS certificate validation step, the network library could basically do a check against the pre-known good domains, and if they don't match, just kill the connection.
Right. Or we can do the things that we always do. We can blame DNS. The RFC standard, blah, 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 blah. Or we can do the other thing, which is keep ignoring it and living life in bliss. And that is pretty epic until you're a part of that breach that generated that kind of thing, and then it's going to be all anxiety and sadness. So I hear you think like, okay, why is this even happening then? What's the reason behind this? And the honest and transparent answer, we have no idea. It just happens, and that's why this is a call for research. And that's also why we're releasing Certainly as an open source tool for anyone to start using, because we want more eyes on this subject, and we need help to solve it, because this is not supposed to happen in 2024.
Definitely not, yeah.
But can you explain a little bit what Certainly actually does?
Yeah, we should be better than whatever the current situation is.
Yeah.
So what Certainly is? It is a DNS server. It is a HTTP, HTTPS, IMAP, SMTP, does email stuff. But the most beautiful part of it is that it does wildcard certificates in flight on demand. So we are not missing that first request coming in, because bitflips are still rare, so we could actually miss some important data that way. And
I would argue that that's the reason why we're so successful in collecting the data that we do.
Absolutely. Other stuff that it does, it enables like injections, so it can fetch stuff from upstream and basically modify the content before sending it to the client. So this is a kind of alternative for the 307 redirects, obviously.
Yeah, so just to understand here, we're not being malicious, but let's say that you had a JavaScript template. You can put that JavaScript in there. When the client decides to get this third-party JavaScript that you're serving, there can be some other juicy stuff in there.
Yeah, this basically helps to see the impacts.
And you can do that for any kind of extension that you like. It could be JSON, SVG, whatever. It's fully templatable and ready, so just go and have fun with that.
Yeah, some cool new parser exploit somewhere, just hook that in. So it logs in JSON lines for ingestion for your like your favorite log analysis platform.
And we love JQ, so.
Yeah. It allows to do like upstream DNS and HTTP checks, so you're basically able to kind of mirror the external posture of your intended target there. It has this like I got really noticed tonight, like added feature after feature after feature. It sends Slack updates on like stuff that are interesting to you. Obviously fully customizable. It is released as free open source software with the MIT license, so.
So you can contribute to help us do this the right way.
Yeah, and have fun. So you can find Certainly at GitHub right now at happycakefriends/Certainly, because we're not malicious. We're nice
very safe software. But there's so many use cases for this, and we're just getting started with it. But let's say that you are doing red team recon, and you want to understand how the attack surface look, or if you're doing any kind of bug bounty hunting or whatever, and instead of you doing all this DNS brute forcing, buy a couple of flip domains, sit and listen to all the DNS traffic, because it's a very, very high probability that things flip in DNS. You connect those, you have a perfect idea what the naming standards are.
Yeah, basically that leaks that like outside of your network if you're using like a multi-horizon DNS setup or stuff like that. So.
Right. Or even better, why not look what all the scanner box is sending you? Because as soon as you send out the new TLS certificates, they're going to monitor that shit and come running. So you have the latest and greatest payload that anyone uses. Like as soon as the CVE come out, we see a spike in the traffic that rolls in. We got those payloads, and hey, you can build your own templates with that. But it's also a cool thing for any defender, because that gives you an idea what other people are scanning on your network, and the IP addresses that are doing that, you have a chance to block those and stop stuff.
Yeah. So where to go from here? Obviously, as we pointed out, we need more eyes on the issue. We need more points of more vantage points on this, because our vantage point is obviously at the very end of the line. We're just seeing whatever comes our way. But in order to actually fix the issue at its root, we are going to need more eyes on the actual hardware side of this. What we can do right now, though, is starting to work on the mitigations. They are not that hard, except for maybe the core programming language thingy, but that would actually would be the best out of those. But most importantly, what we need to do is recalibrating our trust anchors. So we cannot trust the computer to do the right thing, because it turns out computers seem to be humans too. So thank you, everybody. I'm Yohoi. You can find me with this tag from all across the intertubes.
And I'm at Stokefriedrich on all social platforms. Any kind of questions or fun stuff you want to talk about, we're going to be outside there and take those questions and have a good time. And other than that, you can hire me. And thank you, and have a good one.